Hi everyone and welcome to this week's video. My name is Angel DeSantis. I am a yoga instructor and I make these videos on religious trauma. And I wanted to talk this week a little bit more about codependency. And I do have a video that I'll link up there about removing your worth from service. But this video I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into the codependency relationship stemming from religious trauma. And this started because of something I saw on the internet, like most things do. I'm looking down because I have my computer here, but the thing that I saw, it was a meme, it was a question. And the question was, did you learn to be needed because you knew you were never going to be wanted? And again, it's, did you learn to be needed because you knew you were never going to be wanted? And I am one of 10 siblings, and I know a lot of religious families that have a lot of children. And especially, I'm the second child. And I think that when you grow up in really, really big families, and especially in big religious families, especially the older children, you get stuck in this dynamic where you have to care for the younger ones, or you have to care for whatever it is. And then me growing up in a cult and being a woman, I had to care for the children, I had to care for the cooking and the cleaning, I had to make sure all the men were fed and that everyone's needs were met and mine were not important and nobody was meeting my needs. And I was also taught to not meet my own needs. And I learned that nobody wanted me. Especially a lot of times in these religious communities, birth control is not allowed. So right off the gate, like right off the bat, you're not wanted. You are a product of sex, but you are not wanted. They didn't want you in the world. You happened. And when you enter life happening instead of being wanted, that's its own that's its own place to start from. And preferably when you enter the world, it's because people want you, but sometimes you enter because you're a byproduct of sex and not being able to access birth control. So in this particular, I grew up in a cult called the Children of God. And in this particular cult, birth control was not allowed. If God wanted you to have a kid, you would have a kid. And if he didn't, then you wouldn't. And that was their theory. So there were women that had like 16 children. Um, in any case, when you start life there, it becomes very difficult. But what I learned was that I had to serve everyone else's needs, and I was a provider. So I knew that I was never wanted. So I learned that in order to be in any space, I had to earn my keep. And whether it was doing the dishes or cooking or taking care of children or sick people or whatever it is. And that's also a very religious mindset of like, go in, help the poor, feed the hungry. And where it gets confusing is that those are good things. It's a good thing to care for your siblings. It's a good thing to care for people who are not as strong as you. It's a good thing to care for the sick. Where it gets questionable, everything is good on a spectrum. Like everything, there's a balance to everything. And where the balance starts to tip is where you start to serve others and kind of deny and debase what you need in order to serve others. And then you're actually trying to find value in the service that you provide. But because you don't know what your value is, you end up just serving, 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 and being completely drained. And no one is pouring back into you, including you, because you don't know what that looks like to serve yourself or to hold yourself in a high enough regard that you think that you're important. So again, back to the question of, did you learn to be needed because you knew you were never going to be wanted? And I just want to address the fact that sometimes in religious communities, they tie so much worth to what you can give and not enough to what you need in order to be a full human being. Like, what do you need in order to be a mentally healthy human being is not really a question that necessarily comes up in religious communities. It's more, hey, can you show up to feed the poor? Hey, can you show up for this charity event? Hey, can you take care of my kids? And I think that that was so skewed that even after I left the cult, again, sometimes you leave a thing physically and not mentally, the underlay was already there of like, if I don't show up and earn my keep, nobody will want me in the space. So I would show up with a camera and be like, nobody wants me, but I can take pictures of people and maybe they want that. Or like, nobody wants me, but I can cook this really good food. So maybe I'll lead with that and be like, hey, do you need me to cook anything? Or, nobody wants me, but if I say I'll do the cleanup, then maybe I'll be welcome. Or nobody wants me, but maybe if I watch their children, maybe they'll let me in their house. And then that unconsciously just becomes how I showed up in the world. And it was just, what can I provide for you? Because I know you don't actually want me here. And that is a really devastating thing. And I think it's important to realize that. And a lot of this inner work stuff is quantum, right? So it's like the moment that you realize it, you can start to work on it. But you can't work on it without realizing it. So realizing it is a good thing, but sometimes when you realize it, it feels like it's a bad thing you found out about yourself. But really, the realization of something immediately allows for the, I don't want to say fixing, but for the addressing of the problem, and then you can start to figure out kind of where you want to go from there. But I wanted to talk about how, like, what codependency is. I'm just going to read a little bit off of the Google, and then also how I learned to kind of move away from that. So just real quick, it says codependency. Codependency is a learned behavior that can be passed down from one generation to the other. It's an emotional and behavioral condition that affects the individual's ability to have a healthy and mutually satisfying relationship. It is also known as relationship addiction because people with codependency often form or maintain relationships that are one-sided, emotionally destructive, and or abusive. And it says codependency often affects a spouse, parent, sibling, friend, coworker, or person afflicted with alcohol or drug dependence. Originally, codependent was a term used to describe partners in chemical dependency, so like your brain chemistry. Persons living with or in a relationship with an addictive person. And similar patterns have been seen in people in relationships with chronically ill or mentally ill individuals. And it says, what is a dysfunctional family? It kind of goes into that. And this is from MHAnational.org, which is, what is it? Mental Health America. But it talks about how codependents have low self-esteem and look for anything outside of themselves to make them feel better. And again, when your worth is tied to service and you are able to get that hit of like, ooh, I'm a good person, I helped a child. Oh, I'm a good person, I helped a homeless person. That can become an addiction. And what you end up doing is just, quote, sacrificing more and more of yourself. And at no point do you stop and think about, what do I need? What do I want? Especially if you grew up in a religious environment, thinking about yourself can feel selfish. So I just want to call that out, because what I found is I went from being in a religious environment where I was just serving all of the time, to being in a marriage where I was serving all the time, to working for a charity where I was serving all of the time. And it's always in denial and betrayal of my needs. So then I don't even feel safe in myself. Like, I don't even feel safe in my own company, because I know that if I get into a situation where it's, I have to pick between me or serving someone else, I'm always going to pick serving someone else, because I feel obligated to do so. And because, again, it is a good thing to help someone else. So it can be something that's really confusing, but the way that I kind of made my way out of this is I took a little pause and I started to identify doing things for myself because I enjoyed it that didn't involve serving someone else. So for example, cooking myself a meal without having to cook for like, I grew up cooking for like 30 people. So it was a really big deal for me to actually spend 20, 30 minutes to make a meal just for me that only I was going to enjoy. It felt really weird. It felt like I was doing something wrong. Or even like going on a walk around the lake that I really liked without inviting someone to go with me, someone that I knew was having a hard time, and I felt obligated. Well, me taking a walk around the lake is a waste. Why don't I extend the invitation to somebody else who would enjoy being able to like tell me all their problems? And it's just that moment of choosing yourself, and what does it feel like to exclusively choose yourself. And it does start with these really simple things like making yourself a meal, taking care of your body. Reading a book, for me, I always would feel like it was a waste of time, because why was I reading a book if I could be serving someone else? It's these little things. So I would say what helped me a lot was starting with these little things. For me, my yoga practice was a huge deal, because I would have to carve out time, go to the studio, pay my money that was only going to be spent on me, and then I had one whole hour of just me working on myself and stuff that I wanted to do. And that was what really got me off on this super important self-healing and self-love journey, was just showing myself that I was willing to spend time on myself and I was a worthy investment. So I'm going to extend that out to you and ask you what little things that you could do that you might feel guilty for, or what little things that you could do that are exclusively for you. They're just you. You are the only one who benefits. You're the only one who is filled up from it. And that is a worthy thing to do. You are not a waste of time. You do not owe anybody your service. You do not need to make space in your life for someone who has informed you that they have less than you. Your life is always your choice. Who you have in your life is always your choice. So start there. Start with really being really kind to yourself and giving yourself small luxuries that you benefit from. And then the next step that I did, that I'm going to tell you, is I made a list of people who I felt enjoyed me without me bringing anything to the table. So I didn't have to show up really funny. I didn't have to show up in full hair and makeup. I didn't have to show up to cook or clean. It was just people who I thought enjoyed my company. And whether I sat in silence or whether I was really excited about a topic and shared it with them, there was a handful of people who I felt truly enjoyed my company. And as I got to know people, I would actually have to consciously decide, I'm going to go hang out with this person and I'm not going to provide a service. I'm not going to ask them, hey, what can I bring? Oh, hey, do you need me to clean your house? I'm very consciously not going to provide a service. And then that makes it on them that if I get there and they're like, oh man, we need watermelon or we need vodka, then I could be like, oh, then I can get it. Now that it's been asked for, now I can decide whether or not I want to do it. But it's the removal of like, let me prove that I'm worth showing up because I'm going to provide something for you. It's like, here I am, let's meet as equals and stay in flow with each other and play off of that, instead of always showing up feeling like you don't deserve to be there. So I made that list of people who I thought enjoyed like my company, just without anything else attached. And then slowly but surely that list has started to grow. And that's been a really wonderful thing. And I continue to try and show up to the best of my ability, providing the service that I can provide without betraying myself. And so now when I meet someone or when I go a place, I feel better about it. I feel more self-confident. But the reason I feel self-confident is because I've learned to not sell myself short. And I think that's a really important thing. And I think that when you grow up with a religious mindset where they're always telling you Jesus and then others and then you, and that's how you spell joy, I think that you learn to constantly put yourself very, very last. And it's at the cost of feeling safe in your own body and mind. So flip it. Do you first, and then do others, and then Jesus can take care of himself. But that's my story today. That's my spiel for you, is take care of yourself, learn to put yourself first. And I know that your programming, your religious programming will be like, no, that's selfish. And work through that. Because if you have never put yourself as a priority, it's very likely that no one else has either. So learn to put yourself first. Learn to gift yourself permission to show up in spaces without having to serve, and learn to gift yourself spaces in your own life where you provide massive benefit to yourself. So hope this is helpful. leave comments below. Thank you to everyone who does. I know that people see it and it does help them. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'll see you next time.